And if this man is new to you, he is one of the co-hosts for This Is Revolution. So I talk to him often on Saturday afternoons. But he's also a professor, live coming straight from Missouri. Dr.
The
G.
great state.
Bajlan.
Hey, great to be with you, Marcus. Except it's a terrible day, and bad things are happening. And American empire is messing up big time again. And of course, the collateral damage is the Afghan people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Um,
uh, it's crazy. Following the news all day.
is
I'm
this?
not,
Were you
Yeah, go
not?
ahead.
Is this unexpected? It's like a surprise or anything, or?
You know what? I want to say that people were saying this back in 2002. People were saying that this was going to end like this. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a super expert on Afghanistan. It's peripheral to my area of study. But, anyone who has read and, understands a little bit about Afghan history will understand that this outcome, as much as frankly Americans were lied to by the political establishment, by the military establishment, by the high command about where this war was going and what was going to happen in the end. I think people with even a cursory knowledge of history were aware that this outcome was a highly expected outcome.
I mean, I would hope, and that's like the thing. It's like I agree. People who do read, people who do even just a little bit of cursory knowledge of, you know, especially the American Empire, um, this shouldn't have been that surprising. I just don't think that is even close to a substantial amount of people, especially in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think most people in the United States are pretty insulated from empire. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're in like another country, especially if you're in the Middle East, you have to care about American empire, right?
Yeah.
If you're in America, you could just go shopping and watch TV and ignore this thing. There's no social. It's not even like Vietnam. There was no conscription, so people could just tune out and ignore what was going on. And the Beltway politicians were saying that a little bit more military intervention here, a surge there, and we'll have this Afghanistan nut cracked. And it's pretty clear that that was never the case. And you know what's annoying? No one's going to be held accountable. Nobody on the American side is going to be held accountable.
I mean, yeah, that of course not. I mean, so and that's the so like most of my plan today. There, like I did want to show that a lot of the stuff from the Washington Post from the Afghanistan papers,
Mm-hmm.
um, which that one of the things that's most frustrating for me is that any time over the past, I mean, 2 years, at least a year and a half, since Trump first announced he was going to draw down in Afghanistan, there's just been an overwhelming just ignoring of these facts that, I mean, yeah, when you had like 6 months within the beginning of the war, you've got at the time Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld, may he rest in peace, talking about how they don't know, like having discussions with generals about not knowing where the bad guys are, not knowing who the bad guys are. There's a complete misunderstanding of the situation and even like culture of Afghans. And so this has been going on for 20 years, and like at the end of the day, like, I don't know what else. And that's what I was saying, it was like, other than like a robust refugee process, I don't think the United States should really have their hands in anything.
I completely agree. There's a lot of talk about what can we do about this tragedy. Because let's be clear, the Taliban, who come out of a milieu that was funded by the United States in the 1980s anyway,
Yes.
to fight the Soviet Union. The Taliban are not great guys, right? They're not like they're nationalists. They're not ISIS, but they're religious reactionaries. They don't have a good political agenda for, you know, not just the people who like help the American forces there, but just for like regular kind of secular orientated people. They don't have a good political agenda. But there's going to be this big push, I think, in the Beltway media about like, well, we should do a little intervention here, we should do a little intervention there to protect Afghan women. And if you remember, I sent you an article way back, you know, at the beginning of the Afghan war, there was all this like fake tears about Afghan women. Now I'll tell you this: there is something America can do, and that is open up its borders to Afghan refugees. I think having, you know, like getting airplanes out there and giving Afghans, you know, America has been in their country for 20 years, giving Afghans who want to leave and resettle in the United States, that's the best America can do. But to believe that somehow some extra application of military force after 20 years in which military force was applied can somehow rescue the situation now is delusional at best. What the American adventure in Afghanistan is like a headless chicken, you know, like whatever opportunity there existed to like have some kind of withdrawal with like some kind of order, that probably died in like 2005, 2006, when the Americans didn't come to the table with the Taliban and make a deal with them, because the Americans drank their own, you know, like this is the problem. The Americans drink their own ideological Kool-Aid and thought they could do some kind of like miracle work in turning Afghanistan into like a liberal, neoliberal kind of free market democracy. On
who's that? Like that asshole Bill Kristol was literally saying this of like, hey, we should do one more surge to really fix this place, and it's like obviously, I mean, this guy just, what is he, just like a wind-up toy, right? And it's like his only, just every time his cymbals clap, war, like that's the only thing he's got. And then there's just so many people who, where you trot out this thing, which once again, Afghanistan Papers had released all these documents and they literally talked about that, how after a while they're like, okay, so like, why are we here? What are we doing? Well, oh, let's try and install a democracy. That's what we're doing. Nation building. Oh, let's, you know, build schools and women's rights. That's what we're doing. And at the end of the day, or hey, let's just drive it home and complete out, all out fucking just bombing everyone that won't comply into nothingness, and then we've got what we want. Like those are the options on the table. And they, you know, went with 1 and 2 of just like this occupying force upholding, as we can see, because it fell within days, a complete house of cards.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit from a historical perspective. There was a revolution in the 70s in Afghanistan, and a left-wing government came to power, and there was, you know, all kinds of political disorder, and the Soviets went in. Now, the Soviet-backed regime managed to survive the Soviet withdrawal until 1996, right? I think the Soviets withdrew in 88 or 89, and the regime survived because it had some kind of like base of support, despite the weaponry and the support given to the Mujahideen fighters by the United States, by Saudi Arabia, by Pakistani intelligence, right? And that regime survived until 1996, and when they caught Najibullah, the leader, they strung him up and murdered him, right?
Yep.
The Americans were in for a decade, were in for like 2 decades, not 1 decade like the Soviets, and their regime that they established was so fragile that it couldn't even last like 90 days, right? And we really have to ask, where did all that trillions of dollars go, you know? Well, and if you look at the pictures coming out of Afghanistan, you can see like General Dostum's house.
Yes.
All these corrupt elites. And then you're getting these people, and I was talking to someone today, a friend and a colleague, but someone who I have big disagreements with, who was like, well, the problem was the corrupt Afghan leaders. It's like, you were the guys who gave them all this money.
Yeah, right? Like exactly. How do like that's the thing. It's like, how is it able for people to be corrupt without these contracts, without these just influx of, like you said, trillions, right, that we've spent out there? Like it's impossible.
And there's a bunch of people out there who are thinking like, oh, the Americans were in Afghanistan to extract Afghanistan's resources. And I'll tell you this for nothing. Nobody gives a crap about Afghanistan's resources. Every country has resources underneath it. No one was going to invest the money needed to like extract Afghanistan's minimal wealth. So what was the economic imperative? It was because the whole military operation itself was a self-licking ice cream. It was a way to kick open the door of the American treasury and loot the American people. But of course, the Afghans are the collateral damage. Because, you know, we have sometimes a little bit of vulgar knowledge, idea of what imperialism is. Because imperialism, you know, in many places in the world, it's to extract resources. But in Afghanistan, Afghanistan emerged as this kind of perpetual way for the military-industrial complex to sell its hardware to the American government using American taxpayers' money. And you know, when you read those reports, and this was something that Kuba, you know, my friend from This Is Revolution, Kuba Wasinski, said, he goes, you know, they would like make the argument that Afghanistan has all these natural resources. That was just a way to try and convince politicians to stay in the country so that these military-industrial complex goons could get more money and more contracts extracted from the American.
Yeah. Well, and like, there, like, is there resources at play? Yes. Was it necessarily just for U.S. extraction? No. And I'll tell you how. The president, well, we should say former president now of Afghanistan, Yusuf Ghani.
Ashraf Ghani.
Ashraf Ghani, sorry. He's got a brother. He might have other siblings. I know one of his brother though has 20 to 25% stock in a mining company. That mining company was delivered pretty much to the site of the mine at the back, like right behind U.S. Special Forces. Like U.S. Special Forces had an operation directly to clear a route and secure a mine for a company that President Ghani's brother had 20% stake in. And like that's
Sure.
that's like the type of shit that's like where, yeah, you're just like literally propping up this corrupt government, and it's like it's not a secret, because you look at that that video of that general's house. I mean, holy shit, that was like a Donald Trump fever dream with the amount of gold bullshit looking like a casino strung out like it. And that's the thing, is like that's in Afghanistan. Like, what are we talking about?
This is what it's been. It's been a huge boondoggle, right? It's been a huge boondoggle. This whole war on terrorism has been a huge boondoggle. Of course, the only reason I mention it is because I think people have to understand like what the primary factor was, and it was the projection of military power. It was the military-industrial complex being like a self-licking ice cream, trying to justify its ongoing consumption of resources, and then of course geopolitical factors, encirclement of China, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's been an absolute disaster. You know, there's gonna be like partisan politics being played over this. People are gonna blame Biden.
Yeah.
People are gonna, you know, it's if you want to blame, it's like the entire American political establishment has been complicit in this, and this end, maybe they could have, you know, maybe they could have like withdrawn, and it would have been they'd done some tactical changes where it wouldn't have been so rapid or what have you. But this was the inevitability of this military intervention. And you know, we know the story, Marcus. We like look at American interventions over, you know, people are going to hark back as like, well, we did a great job in Japan and Germany after the war.
Yeah, come on.
And it's like, bro, what are you talking about, man? Like,
and I'll say this too, that the where there, I think there's like 100% specific fault with the Biden administration for like how they handled, you know, the actual drawdown, was the actual failure, right, to get people out. And so this is like something I do like every, you know, like was every day, is just like tracking like what's coming out of the White House, what's happening on Capitol Hill is what I call it. But the multiple times they give this line because they ask, hey, like, what about the interpreters and their family members? And I think like some of the numbers like I'd seen were upward to 90,000 people that were looking to leave Afghanistan and had a direct connection to the United States imperialist efforts. But yeah, so constantly they would say they're not even helping expedite the process for people who are just now getting into it. They're only looking at people who are already in the pipeline. And so even from face value, for weeks now, months maybe, they weren't even ever serious. And now we are at a crisis where there's a lot of people who want to leave, and I think they should be able to leave peacefully, no issues. There are some reports out of what the Taliban leadership is saying that they are going to be cool with U.S. forces coming in. I think they're already on the deck as far as surrounded, or like, I don't know what the situation is, but I've heard that they're already on the deck at the airport. Taliban said, hey, you guys can let your, take, people can go, flights can go out. I think that's the only thing that I'm okay with. Right, is just allowing people to leave, and like hopefully that happens, because this whole idea that like there's some bloody war that's going on and the Taliban's like ravaging cities and all this type of stuff, that's just not true. Like they literally just like they were able to walk into so many places, and when it comes to Kabul, they literally were meeting with Ghani before he stepped down and left.
Yeah, because like they were, because the Taliban knew that America was going to leave, and they just had to bide their time and wait for the moment when they were going to leave. There's going to be all these people saying like, well, we should never announced when we were going to leave. Whatever the case, whatever you did, the Taliban are going to be there, and a lot of people just like cut their deals with the Taliban. They were like, okay, things are changing. We're going to cut our deals. A bunch. I saw pictures. I don't know if they're confirmed. Bunch of army people just like went off with their millions of dollars worth of army equipment, went to Iran, people going to Uzbekistan, to Tajikistan, people heading across to Pakistan. It's like a huge blunder. And I agree with you. Like I am fully supportive of the United States holding on to the airport and allowing as many Afghans who want to come to America to come to America, because that's the least that the American owes the Afghan people after this absolute debacle after 20 years, and there's going to be people who are going to like you say, are going to try and like parlay this into like we should have stayed longer. Meghan McCain is saying my father would be angry.
My father, he's dead. Think for
dead.
yourself.
And look at the disaster of all these imperial adventures the Americans had.
Well, and so here's the problem too, Djene, is that, like you said, who knows? Because like, who knows where all of these weapons, all of like, and like jets and all of this equipment, right, is now going to be leveraged for some other type of intervention somewhere else.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that's like the real like fuck, because I'll tell you one thing. If it's U.S. equipment, good luck maintaining that shit without the supply chain. I'm sure you'll figure out how to keep some shit together, but like that shit's got 3 to 6 months max. But at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of shit that they got that, I mean, they don't need maintainers for. I mean, like, I don't even want to think about the amount of weaponry they got. But yeah, like you said, and like this is the stuff that's completely on Biden, and do I think anybody in would Trump have been better? No. Would Obama have been better? No. Hillary? No. None of them would have been better. It all would have looked the same way, because no one's actually willing to do the thing of like letting people who we've done harm to just freely come to this country and actually give them redress, right? Not just like, hey, welcome, go get fucked at some fucking minimum wage job. Like, we should be giving these people something.